All right. Good morning, Abla. Thank you for coming to our class. This is the University Honors Seminar, and we're studying immigration and identity. And we're thankful that we have you to come talk about some of your experiences and ideas, and challenge my students with, some of your ideas, and maybe even questions to them about the experiences and what they're learning. So we can do this format however you like. If you want to just talk through or ask us questions, or however you like. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me to your class. I've got the set of questions, the awesome set of questions you sent me. So probably we start with that. And I grouped them into 10 questions. And I'm going to try to address a little bit these 10 questions, and maybe for a more cozy conversation, then we stop the recording. You feel free to ask me to say something more about one of these questions, or maybe these questions will start a new set of questions. I'd like to hear from you. I love all the questions you shared with me. I'm going to randomly start answering some of them. So the first question was, how did your academic interests fall especially into religion? And I love this question for obvious reasons, because religion is what I do in my life, in my academic life / personal life. And it made me think, right? We like questions that make us think. We pose like, why are you doing what you're doing? And today is an opportunity to get out of the tradition I do in the classroom, where I like to be quiet and allow students to talk about their experience, especially when we do religion. But today, since it's about my experience, my personal experience, maybe I'll feel free to address the way I feel about it. So for me, religion is a way to answer a set of basic questions in life that we all have, we all share as human beings, what I call existential questions, right? So whether you seek an answer from spirituality, music, art, career, doing something, a human service, or religion, it's a way you use, it's a way that works for you for a reason or another to answer these questions, right? Because in your life journey, and I know it sounds like preaching maybe now, but again, it's my personal experience. I don't do that in my classroom, but today maybe it's fine to do that. You will be faced by this set of questions. Even if you decide like, I'm going to be, I'm going to be just, living a simple life. I just want to have a good career, a good family, travel, pay off my mortgage, right? Life, or the school of life in a way or another, will force you to ask yourself these existential questions. We all have them. I had coffee with one of my colleagues who's a professor now, and he was my student. Like, he took a woman in the Quran with me 2 days ago, and we had this discussion on how interesting you move in life with questions, with trying to know yourself, because we think we know ourselves, but it takes a life journey to know yourself. As you move from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s, he's not 40 yet, but I can speak for myself. So during your 20s, it's all about the other, right? And therefore, there's this struggle. It's trying to find answers to my questions, including what's the meaning of my own existence? And this is one of the questions that I call existential questions. It's trying to find yourself by using the other as a mirror, whoever the other is, as your own mirror, right? And therefore, during your 20s, you live this struggle, because it's about you, but also it's about the mirror, right? So, and therefore abuse can hurt the most during your 20s. And of course, before your 20s as well. Because what if the mirror I'm trying to see myself in is a smashed mirror, or I can't see myself well in that mirror. Your 30s now, it's trying to find the balance between you and the other, whoever you identify the important other in your life. And the golden age is your 40s. I know you want now like feel connection with what I'm saying, but then because in your 40s it's all about you. So in my journey, religion and my research, because in my case I teach religion and slash I my research is focused on religion, because all my research literally is inspired by class discussions, all of it. I have 3 books, and this probably I'm gonna address more in another question, great question I got from you, which is what inspired your field of study, which is always about questions, right? Questions from others, including, but mostly inspired by questions from my students. So why religion? Why religion? Like since enlightenment, unfortunately, as humans, we moved to treating science as the new religion. And don't misunderstand me, I'm not against science. We need science to build our lives, to enhance our lives. But to treat it as the ultimate resource to answer all questions, probably we're going too far with that. At the end of the day, science will keep answering questions related to how, right? How you live your life, how you enhance your life, how you end your life, how, right? But the question why still needs to be addressed. And these are the types of questions, again, that I call existential questions. We numb our existential questions. And I see that in obsessive social media, for example, usage, right? Because there's something inside of you and you don't want to find it inside of you, you're going out, you're going to social media, and therefore it's turning to be toxic. And I'm sure like your generation, you had to deal with that way more than us. Because when I'm waiting for the validation to come from the other all the time, social media platforms, and when I'm waiting for any meaningful answer to the meaning of my own existence from support from others who don't know me in the first place, it means that I need to change my reality from time to time to fit the other, right? We go today with numbers of likes, right? Which is very, very toxic. I see numbing these existential questions also in consumerism, in like work hard, shop harder. You need to work all the time in order to find the meaning to your existence, so you can travel more, so you can buy more. Again, don't misunderstand me. Like even if we take not only religion, if we take Islam as a religion, you're encouraged to enjoy every minute of your life. You're here to build something meaningful before you leave, right? But to be everything, to replace the meaningful way of thinking life, this is what I have concerns with, right? Our place in nature, our place in the world, right? So we started as being the center of nature, the center of the world, right? Religions in the past advocated for that. But gradually, treating science, not using science, but idealizing science, treating it as the new religion, reduced the meaning of our existence and dwarfed the place we had in the universe. So instead of controlling nature, now we're part of nature, irrelevant part at times, right? Many times we seek finding, locating our value from being either a product or producing things, or even being a mere product yourself. So the more you can fit into the game of buying and selling, the big market, the more you can find your value. Religion can in a way or another bring the balance back. This is one of the way I think of religion and spirituality in general, the big questions, again, addressing the big questions, right? for example, in probably you anticipated that I'm going to be referring to some of my research, because literally our research exhausts our lives. Like my first book, it took 5 years of me like being involved in these questions. Less my second and third books, but still you live those questions, and probably we can discuss more after I post the recording and I get to hear more from you. So my second question deals with the centrality of the human beings. My second book, Centrality of a Human Beings, and the missing place we had as divine beings, And the book is on pain and suffering. According to the Quran, one of the central moments in our existence is the minute of creation itself, which is described as having, many similarities, by the way, with the biblical story. So I take it as hybrid biblical / Quranic story. There was that minute, shocking minute, probably for us, if we realize it, when the Quranic scene describes God surrounded by angels in the minute of creation when he shapes Adam. And he announces in paradise the intention of doing that, the intention of creation. And this is in chapter 2 in the Quran. And probably this summarizes and reduces the meaning of our existence into being divine, which is a huge responsibility. So God announces, according to the Quran, in chapter 2, the intention, the divine intention of placing humans on earth, by saying inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, a verse in Arabic, which means I'm going to place a vicegerent on earth. I'm going to place a deputy on earth, which means our existence is we come for a reason, all of us, whether we're aware of it or not, whether we decide not to be aware of it. This is a different question. But it's painful not to realize that you're divine, and I mean by divinity, all human beings. Because that minute after announcing the divine mission, the initiation of the divine mission, we see God, according to the script, the Quranic script, breathing from on his soul into Adam. And what would that mean other than making you divine? If you have part of God inside of you as a human being, this means not only you're assigned this responsibility to be divine on earth, to act as God on earth, to make like the changes that God would himself ask to be changed if he was on earth, right? So probably this is part of what led me into being fascinated with religion. So it's big questions. And this leads me to another question on your chart here. What inspired your field of study? So it's addressing big questions all the time and responding to questions from others as well. My best teachers are my students. Always vibrant discussions in classrooms lead to something new, because the students come with new questions, fresh questions. And probably the best advice I would say to all of you leading research, never lose the trust in your most naive questions. Because what schools, what academia, what academic conferences, what they do to all of us, they force us in a way or another to be embarrassed or to feel ashamed of asking the naive questions, assuming that they're silly questions or questions someone else answered for us. And therefore, I have issues with institutional religions, right? When you're told that because someone answered their existential questions in a certain way, that they have the right to control the way you think of religion, right? Again, no human being can have the right to advocate for their own questions at what can work for all people. I find these especially relevant to Islamic studies. Many times Islamic studies turn from studying Islam into studying the history of Islam. The idealization of some answers. And I have so many concerns with this tradition in Islamic studies that you need to cite someone, usually an imam who lived like in some century, to get validation, academic validation for your answers or for your own research, as if someone's experience can exhaust everyone's experience. Like you can still have respect to someone, but this doesn't mean that you can take their questions as questions valid for all people, all times, all places, everyone trying to find their meaning in life, or the meaning of their own existence. To give you concrete examples, my first book, Decoding the Egalitarianism of the Quran, in which finding lost voices on gender, it was inspired by a question I got from my own son, my older son. He joined UNL this year, by the way, political science. He was 16 years old at the time. And I remember giving him a translated copy of the Quran in translation, as a gift to read. And it took him maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes to bring it back to me, pointing at one problematic verse in the Quran, which is known to all researchers and students of the Quran, 434. A verse that is misunderstood to be giving men a license to abuse and to physical violence, or to even to beat women in cases of marital conflicts. And this is chapter 4. So I knew back then probably Zain didn't get to read 4 chapters of the Quran in 15 minutes, but probably he had that question for a while. And then it was a good opportunity for him to bring it to me. And I, of course, as I argue in the Quran, and as many people argue, this is not the true or the correct meaning of that verse. Probably we can go over that if you're interested in after we pause the recording. But I still felt ashamed myself that this is one of the translations, right? Based on not only a mistake in translation, by the way, it's based on a mistake in interpretation. So some books in Arabic will argue for that, right? And which makes a big contradiction with the rest of the Quran, right? So I remember back then I told him, Zain, I have an answer, but let me articulate my answer in a book first, and then I'll give it to you. So big questions from others, what inspired and still inspiring me. My second book on pain and suffering, it was inspired by the tragedy, the ongoing tragedy in my country. I'm from Syria, and since 2011, you know about the ongoing tragedy in Syria. I was telling you that the school of life has its own way to face you with questions that you never think I'm going to have in my lifetime to deal with that. And the question on pain and suffering, this question is one of the questions that I never thought I will have to deal with, right, before. I never knew that I will witness the new Holocaust, no less than the new Holocaust taking place in our country, in my country now, right? And since 2011, with all the horrors taking place in Syria, the displacement of hundreds and thousands of people, the suffering of children, starving, torture, name it, you find it, it's there. With all of that, number one question on social media was, where is God? Right? How can be God, and how can he allow all of that? So this is literally what inspired my second book, addressing the question And it's an old question. It's not new. All humans, we all know the quote, life is not fair. But unfortunately, we don't pause to ask that question and try to find the meaning unless we hit with something personal, right? And finally, let me end with this, the third question, the third book, which is coming with Routledge soon. It's going to be out by December 9, hopefully. The Quranic Dilemma. I deal with a question on the humanitarian content of the Quran and the right to belief, freedom of belief, freedom of speech. Who are the Muslims according to the Quran? Who are the people of the book, Christians and Jews? What about the unbelievers? Do they have the right, which is yes in the Quran, to express themselves? Can you force religion on anyone? How does Quran address all of that? And this was also based on a question that I got this time from my husband as he was reading chapter 18. And chapter 18 in the Quran is recommended for Muslims that they read this chapter every Friday. This is the tradition. So he paused, and I remember there's a story there, and you can tell a book is written based on one story. So I won't be able to share the story now, but there's a story which makes goes against, let's say, or appears as if going against the other's right to life itself, unless they have a religious belief of some kind. And so, yeah, I invested the time to answering this question, and I write that in the acknowledgement of the book itself. And as I say in the book, I wish I have the time and the energy to have a book for every question someone asks, including questions from my students. Some long answers to the first two questions, but maybe we can move fast. And Bethany, feel free to stop me if we get out of time. How are Muslims understood in Nebraska, in your opinion? I addressed this in a previous talk. Personally, I can speak from my personal experience. It's a very inviting place. I've been welcomed, since I arrived in Nebraska 15 years ago. I've been welcomed by everyone. And this was even coming to Nebraska was based on a recommendation from others who enjoyed being in Nebraska as well. When I came to Nebraska 15 years ago, I came as an exchange Fulbright student. I got a Fulbright scholarship to do my master's degree, and ended up by doing my master's degree and PhD degree here. And as a Fulbright exchange scholar, you get to choose. You got to place like 4 universities across the US to choose from. And I had University of Nebraska first place, and that was based on advice from someone who was here, and they recommended highly Nebraska, including how like nicely and kindly they were treated by people here. How has the way you practice religion been impacted by living in the US? I love practicing my religion in the US. I love freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. I love having no pressure at all while I go in, and because this is what I do in my academic career. I question everything, right? I'm a reformist, I'm a feminist. I go questioning the tradition. Not everything in the tradition was as perfect as it's told to us. It can't be. Nothing is perfect, and unless you keep revisiting it and rethinking it and checking it. So, and you know, the freedom of practicing your religion. I've never had any incident of anyone coming to you know, question my religion, even though I'm a veiled Muslim woman, as you can tell. So it's very clear, it's very visual, you know. People, yes, they ask questions out of curiosity. I've been invited to so many churches here in Lincoln, which is so beautiful because people ask with all respect because they want to know you. Many times they want to welcome you. And many times I was introduced to the audience as our Muslim neighbors. We want to hear from our Muslim neighbors, which I appreciate. I'm getting emotional now. Number 5, do you feel like you had to sacrifice some parts of your culture? Not at all. My kids are spoiled because now we add all celebrations from the American culture to our celebration. I have a Christmas tree during Christmas. I have, you know, our traditional sweets during Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. So we celebrate everything. They get gifts for all kinds of celebrations. They're lucky, they're getting spoiled with all of that. But to get the best, you know, there's nothing wrong in being part of the culture. And I raise my kids to be Muslim Americans, not to be Muslims alone, or like it's the mixture of both that will help them be the best they can be. What does, maybe now it's kind of random, what does being American mean to you? I'm very grateful. I got my citizenship last October. So it's a year now. It was a long way, like 15 years, and I got my citizenship only last October. But literally, it feels like I was homeless and I found a home. Literally. Probably I don't need to add anything to that. I have a home now here. It's my home. Something you really like about the US. I like everything about the US, especially the culture of achieving, dreaming big, achieving, working hard. I love it. I'm a hard worker. I enjoy it. I find myself finally having a voice as a Muslim woman, and I can't get, you know, enough of reclaiming my voice and expressing my identity. It can be, sometimes you can lose the balance. It can drag you to places where I've been doing nothing but working all the week. But the joy is when you're in love with what you do, it's not work anymore, right? For me, teaching, especially during very critical times in my life, when like I was so stressed about what's going on, for example, in my country, going to the classroom was my way of getting my mind away of everything. Stay focused, be happy. Because your students, I think of my students as my own kids. You need to be happy. You need to be brave for your kids, for like in school or at home. And many times it helped me just be happy, right? I start the class. I want to be happy for my students. I end the class, I'm happy, as if I don't have anything going on in my life. I'm trying to find more questions before I switch to a discussion with you. Probably it's tricky, I would say about this. It's tricky to keep the balance, because many times, this is my only concern about the culture of working hard nonstop. Sometimes you find success without successful people, right? Which is very dangerous. And as an advice, I can tell you, if your dream is taking you places that makes you miserable, don't go there, right? If it makes you less happy, or if you need to sacrifice, sacrifice part of your personality or your truth or your identity to feel success, so it's not you. You want to be successful. So my only concern is success versus successful people, right? You want to achieve something, not because you want to love yourself when you're there. You want to achieve something because you already love yourself, right? This is the difference. I want to do this. I want to, whatever your goal is, whatever your New Year resolution may be. I want to do that not to start the reconciliation with myself, but because I'm already in love with myself. I'm teaching currently a class, Love in the Arabic Culture, where the whole class is all about the experience of love. And it's no exaggeration to say that your whole life experience is nothing but trying to understand yourself, moving from the ego to the authentic self, to know yourself not as an ego, not like what you other, the mask, the social mask, or what others expect from you, but to be who you are in an authentic way, the authentic self, right? Which can never be anything but I would say the goal of your life is to understand yourself and to be in peace with yourself. So work, as long as you love what you're doing, it's fine. You won't feel of you won't think of it as work. It's love. There is a quote I love from Khalil Gibran, an American Lebanese poet. I teach his book in my current course, Love in the Arabic Culture. He says, work is love made visible. Work is love made visible, whatever. And this is the way you should think of your work. You're in love with something, you want to have it actualized in a physical form. You want the world to see it, to share it with you. This is the experience of your work. And thinking of your future careers, maybe this is the way you should be thinking of what you should be, what should your next step should be. It's what your love leads you, not something against what you like to do, right? Because you won't survive the competition. In the job market, especially in the US and probably everywhere now with the global like crisis, economic crisis, you won't survive the fierce competition if you're not in love with what you're doing, because only then you achieve the most. Do you consider yourself a refugee in any way? Did you come to the US alone? I'm an immigrant woman, but I'm not a refugee because I got my paperwork by getting a job, applying to job, and by getting the job. So my paperwork was done through UNL. I started the Arabic Studies program at UNL back then in 2013. And then according to the American laws, I was able to apply for it. It's a lot of steps leading eventually to citizenship. The hardest, this is a cute question. What was the hardest part of adjusting to life in the US? And maybe I'll end with this question to get questions from you unrecorded and to have a discussion. And I know it's very silly. It's food. It's food. I'm sorry to say that. How I try to do that by cooking the authentic Arabic food. Guys, the Arabic food, if you've never tried Arabic food, please do that. Arabic food is so delicious. And it's so delicious for a reason, because it's time consuming. Like we take our time cooking, you fry, you stuff with meat, and then you dump in this and you do that. It's like if you spend 6 hours in the kitchen preparing for one meal, it's going to be a good meal, right? And street food, like in Damascus, in Syria, I can get street food. I can get someone to do that for me. So my problem is, as you can tell, I'm a busy woman. I have 3 boys at home, I have 3 kids at home, more kids at school. You know, I have research, and I like good food as well. I'm used to good food, time-consuming food. But I try my mama tricks. I cook during weekends. I get a lot of things just frozen, ready, you know, to eat when I'm back after a long day of work. So I know it sounds very silly, but this is my only challenge, adjusting to life in the US. And with this silly answer, maybe I'll pause our recording, and I'd like to hear more from you in a more cozy maybe way of discussion. Thank you, Bethany, for inviting me.
Thank you, Abla. Okay, my students, I'm going to ask them to come up here so you can see them.